Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Tyler, and yes, we are finally going to be doing the what if. What if Sam joined Cobra Kai? Unironically, this was probably one of the more difficult scenarios for me to set up because Sam doesn't even directly join Cobra Kai in this what if. We have to have a bunch of other stuff set up to basically allow Sam to join Cobra Kai. However, I think I managed to pull through and basically make the most realistic scenario or the most realistic possibility for this scenario to happen. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, if you do enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like and be sure to subscribe if you are new, as the majority of my viewers are not subscribed. Along with that, I don't want to necessarily burn out with Cobra Kai like how I've done with Naruto or Dragon Ball, just doing this one topic on my channel. I want to do multiple things. So with that being said, after this video, I will not be posting, or my next recent post, I should say, will not be a Cobra Kai video. Reason why I want you guys to know that is because I want you to comment down below what should be the next video. I'm either going to drop a One Punch Man one or an MCU one. It doesn't even have to be that as well. It can be any other thing. I just don't want to drop another Cobra Kai video as, I kind of want to get a schedule going. Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into this what if. This is a long-awaited what if for most of you, so let's dive into it, guys. Hope you guys do enjoy. Okay, so in order to build up Sam joining Cobra Kai, a few things I believe need to be clarified for us. One, Sam's perspective on how her dad treats Cobra Kai and thinks of Cobra Kai are going to be completely different. We know Sam initially thought how Cobra Kai isn't bad or violent, and how most of her friends are in that dojo, and Sam in the OG timeline contemplates and is kinda hesitant about the whole thing, but when Miguel accidentally hits her, she then goes on to say, "My dad was right about Cobra Kai," which basically means that before this, she was kind of debating about the whole thing, but in this timeline, we're actually gonna make her think like a normal human being. Sam won't be thinking Cobra Kai is bad, and rather would be arguing with Daniel about the situation in the first place. She isn't going to be dragging it on so her and Miguel are going to be having problems and awkward tension. No. Off the bat, instead of the family argument being ignited from Amanda and Daniel's mom, it would be Sam and Daniel at the table. If you kind of want to have Daniel go on about how Cobra Kai is just a bunch of bad kids or whatever, and if her friends are there, then they must be bad too or no better, this could set Sam off, basically defending her friends and even saying how just because Daniel got bullied by the old Cobra Kai doesn't mean that the new Cobra Kai is the same. Clearly, she's not getting bullied. Miguel, aka one of Cobra Kai's students, literally came in and helped her. Now, this is actually revealing information about what happened at school and Miguel basically defending Sam and beating up Kyler for Sam because, Miguel took a stand. Now, after this, I think instead of Amanda and Daniel's mom arguing and basically the whole family arguing at that point, the argument itself is just heated from just Daniel and Sam, and really everyone else at the table is kind of quiet. Sam would end up storming off into her room pissed off, and we would get Sam talking to Miguel on her computer or whatever device she would FaceTime him on, and would basically vent to Miguel as to what had happened between her and her dad and the argument that they were just having. This time, Daniel never comes into her room and asks who she's talking to, which in the original would lead into Sam saying it's just a lab partner. And this originally would start to cause the slow descent of Sam and Miguel's relationship, but it never happens in this timeline, so the descent never even slowly happens because the start of it doesn't even happen. Also, this Sam is completely different. From her perspective, it's not Daniel giving advice to Sam that would later actually be revealed to be true, because in the end, it's not true. So in the end, they just look wrong and stupid. In this timeline, Sam actually defends her friends, just like, well, at least in my opinion, any logical person would do. Currently, Amanda and Daniel's mom would be trying to calm down the situation rather than fighting, which means Miguel isn't going to be seeing Sam hiding the fact that she's dating Miguel, and the next biggest change I think would happen is Daniel training Robbie, and when they proceed to eat with each other, Daniel and Sam are still a little mad at each other, but luckily Amanda managed to get through to Daniel and managed to tell Daniel to at least keep an open mind because, Daniel should just be smart in this situation, in my opinion, guys. Like, Daniel has to understand that not everything is just going to stay the same. And no, I do not think Daniel should come to this realization himself, because consistently in season 1, Daniel is kind of a hardhead and he needs someone like Amanda who always helps him through his problems if he's being an idiot or a moron, and basically guides him through his problems. Or at least shows the perspective that Daniel isn't really taking into consideration. And I think Amanda would do the same thing that she's been doing in this season here, and Daniel should at least have an open mind at this point. She would probably say something along the lines of, just because her and Johnny had a rivalry back in '84 doesn't mean they have to apply it here. Sam has friends that are in Cobra Kai. Daniel is just gonna have to understand that. Daniel's mom could even agree with Amanda, which would open Daniel's eyes even further, and obviously Daniel isn't going to be cool with Cobra Kai fully, but he is willing to keep more of an open mind. Now, the next thing I would like to have happen is Miguel meeting Daniel. I think for this to actually work, when Miguel looks out, he doesn't see Robbie and Sam hanging out, but rather he sees Robbie, Amanda, Daniel, and Anthony awaiting for Sam and Daniel, who was getting ready to basically go and sit at the table, but they had to have this talk first. So Miguel doesn't see them, so he just rings the doorbell, leading into Daniel then meeting Miguel, which I did have happen in other what ifs, and usually it kind of goes down with Daniel initially not wanting to hear Sam out or anything, but Sam says how he's the prime example on how Cobra Kai has changed, and instead of Sam looking like a bad person, it's the exact opposite. She further goes on to ensue how Miguel is cool because, well, that's her boyfriend. And at that point, Daniel is just being revealed information that he's not expecting at this point, and Sam would go on to basically say how Miguel is a good guy. She helps convince Daniel that Cobra Kai isn't really all that bad anymore, and this old rivalry Daniel had shouldn't get in the way of Sam and her relationship with her friends, all because of Daniel and Johnny's petty squabbles. This is Sam more so revealing her Amanda side and actually kind of spitting right now, and revealing to Daniel that he's kind of being a moron. Daniel, seeing what's going on, would just accept what he's doing is wrong and would allow Miguel to come into the house. So Miguel would actually manage to get to sit with the LaRussos and eat with them, and also being introduced to Robbie, aka Daniel's student. Now, from Robbie's perspective, this would be a little awkward considering he saw Miguel with Johnny, and that was the main reason he kind of dipped away and kind of went down this path that he's going down right now. But after a little awkward tension, he just finds a nice little comfort zone, and it's overall a successful dinner for Miguel, and he makes a good first impression on the LaRussos, and overall Sam and Miguel's relationship is actually strengthened because of this night happening. And as for Robbie, Robbie isn't going to go anywhere with Sam, and now he actually thinks that Miguel is actually pretty cool if anything, due to them interacting at a dinner table and not in, specific situations that with the right context could be easily solved. So Robbie and Miguel this time around aren't starting off of misunderstandings and aren't really enemies or rivals at this point, but kind of just friends slash acquaintances. And like I said, Miguel would be liked by the LaRussos, being told to come back whenever he likes, and Daniel would apologize about the bad first impression that he had on him. With that being said, Miguel would then be walked out by Sam and would even leave him with a kiss that secures the W for the boy Miguel. Now, after this point in season 1, there are going to be a lot of awkward tension scenes between Miguel and Sam. However, in this timeline, because we basically got rid of all that, by this point, they're at their best. Miguel wouldn't be distant with Sam, and there's no awkward tension. Miguel wouldn't even have built up anger when she doesn't arrive at the party, and when Robbie walks Sam down, Miguel isn't going to be having, second thoughts. And in all honesty, because he wouldn't be having the built-up anger, I don't think he would even be drinking in the first place, and he already knows who Robbie is, so he's not going to be, making guesses or claims or anything like that. So this time it's actually a successful party night, and Sam isn't going to be saying how her dad was right or any of that stupid stuff. And also, since they're all partying, which also includes Robbie, this means Robbie would never be around when Daniel and Johnny were done after their day of vibing, which means we would actually get a Daniel versus Johnny spar, since that was hinted at before Robbie arrived and kind of ruined everything between these two. No offense. But this time we would see the two actually spar with each other, with them actually just drawing and canceling each other out. Now, with that being said, there isn't going to be any built-up anger or really any built-up conflict for the season 1 finale, which would lead into Johnny teaching the class about no mercy. That never happens due to Johnny and Daniel being on good terms and Johnny not knowing yet that Daniel is teaching his son, and not to mention Miguel, who would be at his lowest point in canon, is now at his highest point. So no mercy is not even going to be brought up to the kids, and no one, I don't even think, is going to be taking this factor into consideration, even if it was brought up, except for maybe Hawk, but I'm going to say for the sake of simplicity that it's just not going to happen because it wouldn't. Along with this, Sam and Daniel actually go to the All Valley initially, and Robbie would be repping Miyagi-Do off the bat. When Johnny sees this, he rushes towards Daniel near the spectator seat and asks what the hell he was thinking training his son. Things get heated up between Daniel and Johnny, and we would then get Daniel basically telling Johnny. Daniel would be mad at this himself because Daniel didn't know that, Robbie was Johnny's son, and Daniel would even question to Robbie if this was all a trick to try and spy on him. But at that point, Amanda, Sam, and Miguel would actually step in, basically clearing the things for Robbie and basically addressing to Johnny and Daniel they're being kind of stupid at this point. Because why would Robbie be spying if he's repping Miyagi-Do and clearly wanting to fight Johnny? Also, think about it. Miguel is repping Cobra Kai, Robbie is repping Miyagi-Do, and they were friends and they got along just fine. Considering that Daniel is even willing to do this and Johnny was learning about a lesson, just let the past be the past, Johnny would complete his character arc for season 1 and would let the past be the past and would swallow the pill that Robbie is repping Miyagi-Do, which is fine. He still tells his students to give it their all and also tells Robbie good luck, along with Daniel. The tournament here would be carried out as per normal, but the main difference here is that there isn't any awkward tension and Robbie is repping Miyagi-Do off the bat, and any awkward tension and any bad stuff that would have happened in the season 1 finale is basically cleared up before the first round, or before the important rounds come up, I should say. This is also applied to Daniel and Robbie, which means by the Hawk fight, Daniel is not mad at Robbie and is basically coaching him while Johnny coaches Hawk. Now, Johnny never brought up the lesson of no mercy, so you could maybe say that Hawk might not kick Robbie's arm in, but regardless, I don't think it changes the scenario I'm going for, and let me explain why. You can say Robbie got his arm broken, but whether it's broken or not, I think he will beat Miguel in this timeline. And if you guys are like, well, what makes you say that? Well, the problem here, guys, is that Miguel has no really hatred towards Robbie at all. They're actually cool at this point, and not to mention Miguel literally defended Robbie when Daniel and Johnny, his own sensei and the father of his girlfriend, were trying to come at him. Due to Miguel actually showing mercy and not trying to injure Robbie's injured arm because that would be kind of ratty, this gives Robbie the advantage and he would clutch up the W. And if he has both arms in this timeline, it's just going to be way easier for Robbie to clutch up the W. So regardless, I think Robbie is going to be winning in this timeline. Now I think here Sam and Aisha should still have their talk. And instead of getting back into karate and joining Miyagi-Do, we can actually have Sam join Cobra Kai when Aisha recommends it. There's no reason for her to say no to Aisha, as her offering to join Cobra Kai is honestly a pretty smart move to make, considering the fact that Daniel and Johnny just squashed their beef. Cobra Kai and Daniel are now not rivals anymore. It's actually a better time than ever, really. And not to mention Aisha, who's basically her best friends there, and not to mention her boyfriend. Also, I do want to say, even if Robbie does get his arm injured, guys, I think due to him winning and clutching up the dub and Miguel showing mercy and sparing, this means Robbie isn't going to really have any, anger towards Johnny, and if anything, Johnny would accept the fact that he is Daniel's student. Johnny and Daniel both go through a similar arc, with both of them realizing that both of their offsprings want to do something different, and, they're just going to have to accept that and not let their petty squabbles get in the way. For Daniel, it was, Sam wanting to hang out with Cobra Kai and all that stuff, and for Johnny, it was, Robbie joining Miyagi-Do. So before Johnny and Robbie leave the All Valley separately, Johnny and Robbie would clear things up, and right before Johnny would leave off with Miguel and Robbie leaves off with Daniel, Miguel would say good fight to Robbie, as Robbie would also say good fight, and hopefully they can do it again sometime. And Miguel would then say yeah, as he would then handshake Robbie's arm that, isn't injured. Now, after this, I think I'm going to be having a scene where Sam approaches her dad with an idea that he doesn't like at all, but realizes that there's really no excuse for Daniel this time to say no. And in all honesty, there aren't really any problems, so screw it. We are going to be replacing Sam's scene of getting back into karate and also the final scene with Kreese returning because he wouldn't return due to Cobra Kai not winning the All Valley, so it doesn't make sense for him to return. I'm going to be replacing not only that, but also Sam getting back into karate with a scene of Johnny at the Cobra Kai dojo currently and with Miguel being at the door. Johnny would say, why is he here? There aren't any classes going on. Miguel would say how he knows, and he was going to approach him at his house, but he wasn't there, so he assumed that he was at the dojo. And at that point, he would tell Johnny about a new student that is currently looking to join Cobra Kai. Johnny would then question who is this person that wants to join the dojo, and it would then be revealed to be Sam LaRusso. And at that point, this is where we end Season 1 and cut to black. So we pick up where we left off, which was with Miguel introducing Sam into Cobra Kai and Sam and Johnny Lawrence interacting. Johnny would then say, why does she want to join Cobra Kai? And that is because, well, all of her friends are here, and not to mention this is the best place for karate, and not to mention she doesn't just want to, always be with her dad, Miyagi-Do and all that stuff. She doesn't always want to do that, so Cobra Kai seems like a pretty good fit for her. Johnny would even ask Sam to give a demonstration since, she is a LaRusso, so she should just be a natural at karate, right? And at that point, Sam shows off her skills, and Johnny would say how there could be some work, but she's definitely at least better than some of the students in the dojo already. Johnny would reluctantly accept, and at that point, Sam would start training at Cobra Kai. Obviously, the scenes where Sam's training at Miyagi-Do, it would just be with only Robbie, and we would actually see Robbie and Daniel considering opening up Miyagi-Do, which would lead into people like Chris and Mitch actually joining the dojo, and even Dimitri early on, considering the fact that they won the All Valley. So instead of going to Cobra Kai, which was the winning dojo in canon, it's now going to be Miyagi-Do, which is in this timeline the winning dojo. Now, I think Sam and Cobra Kai is honestly just having a really good time, being with Miguel, hanging out with Aisha, her best friend, and even getting to know people in the dojo who have good hearts, such as people like Hawk. You see, Hawk and Sam in the original timeline never really got along, so it's kind of nice to see a change of things. In this timeline, where we see by Season 2, they could try and be friends, and I think this actually works out well since Sam is Miguel's girlfriend, and at this point Hawk and Miguel are pretty much bros, so it's only fair for Hawk to kind of get along with Sam, especially since, that is Miguel's girl, his bro's girl. Now, Cobra Kai in this timeline is not going to be cocky at first because they won the All Valley, because they didn't win the All Valley in this timeline. So if anything, they're just going to be more determined and actually going to be training harder than ever. There wouldn't be any need to do the cement training because, again, Cobra Kai is never cocky initially, so they're just going to be training even harder than ever in the dojo, doing basic training, but just doing it very intensely and non-stop because they need to win the next All Valley, or at least they want to. Now, this would lead into Daniel approaching Johnny and asking if Robbie could stay at his house temporarily, and Johnny would reluctantly accept. I think at first it would just be natural for him to kind of just not accept because that is his son, but he would remember, he can't just let the past be the past. And at this point, Robbie and Johnny are cool, and Johnny only wants what's best for Robbie, so he would agree to this, and Daniel would say thank you and how he knows it must have been a hard thing to do. He gives him a handshake, and at that point, Johnny would then get Miguel, and we would then get the emotional scene with basically Johnny breaking down to Miguel why he failed Robbie, but one of the best things he's accomplished in life was, meeting Miguel and training him. I think this would happen here considering the fact that Johnny did kind of fail Robbie, and the fact that Daniel is going to raise him now is just going to kind of remind him this, and this would lead into him bringing Miguel to, this scene. I wanted to say that just in case if you guys were confused as to why this scene would happen, because you guys would probably argue, oh, well, Kreese only made this scene happen. No, this happens, but for a different reason. For this timeline. In this timeline, they don't really have a rivalry with Miyagi-Do, and I don't think they would go out of their way to basically ruin their presentation at the festival. So in this timeline, Miyagi-Do actually goes through with their festival plan, and this means people like Stingray and Tori are going to be joining Miyagi-Do. Personally, I see this fitting really well considering the fact that since Robbie and Sam aren't going to really get together in this timeline, this could lead into Robbie and Tori getting together since they do kind of have those parallels. And I already made a deep dive video as to why these two would get together in Season 4, and I kind of draw their parallels. I know, shameless plug, but you guys should go and check that out because I do go more in depth about that. But I do think Robbie and Tori definitely could get together here, and Tori and Sam could still have a rivalry, It just wouldn't be as intense as in canon, considering the fact that Tori would never go to the beach club because she doesn't even know Aisha, so she wouldn't have any way to go to the beach club. And not to mention, Sam isn't as uptight as she would be in canon, and she wouldn't even accuse Tori in that situation, for at least in this timeline, considering the fact that her personality is different. Now, with that being said, Tori and Sam can still have a rivalry. It just won't be nearly as intense. And there isn't going to be a school fight, considering the fact that there's literally no way for it to happen. Tori and Miguel never even get together, so basically Tori never embraces her Cobra Kai way and is never going to be basically bloodlusted in this timeline because she is embracing the Miyagi-Do philosophy. Another thing that changes is Dimitri never goes to Cobra Kai and Kreese isn't even there, so basically Dimitri never makes a report, which means Hawk never spirals down and never breaks up with Moon, which means Hawk is actually still a good guy in this timeline. Pretty much there's no conflict in this timeline because everything gets resolved so early on, basically by season 2. There really isn't any tension in this season, and the only tension that could have potentially been made was between Tori and Sam. However, that doesn't even happen considering the fact that their basis on how the rivalry starts would just be mainly because they're the girl representatives of their dojo. Carmen and Johnny never fall off, so that means Johnny wouldn't even approach and even think about kissing Ali when they meet, and he would make it clear that he is actually seeing someone, and they would just leave that there and move forward in the future as friends. And Daniel's business never basically loses traction because of the school fight, because it just never happens. So that means LaRusso Autos is actually good, which means no Okinawa trip and no pressure point technique for Daniel. That is where I'm going to be leaving my story off for right now, guys. And if you do want to see more Cobra Kai videos, let me know down below and suggest some in the comment section. This video's over 20 minutes. Oh my god, I'm gonna edit this, guys. Alright, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to share with your grandpa, your grandma, your uncle, your aunt, etc. Just share with everyone you know. Subscribe if you're new, hit the bell icon, that way you're notified and updated every time I upload, and follow me on Twitter, that way, you know, I don't know, I do cool stuff on Twitter sometimes, I'm funny sometimes. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tyler, and I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Peace out, have a nice rest of the day, everybody.
Because that's what I have.